Permaculture began slowly climbing towards a stall about a decade ago. And today, the fear of it spiraling into the ground is so frightening that many farmers who invested heavily for years, well, they're scared now to publicly admit that alternative agriculture is in free fall. Where are all the customers? And why does it take most alt-ag farmers a decade to barely break even, while others generate massive and almost obscene profit? In order to understand how to restart the permaculture engine and also leverage its cousin, regenerative agriculture, it'll help to know why and where it ran out of steam. Alt-ag stalled because educators failed to onboard food buyers. It's that simple. The 12 Permie Principles that include do no harm should also apply to harming farmers, but that sentiment slipped through the cracks in a Wild West scramble for instructor profit. It's hard to determine where permaculture began to vector off course, but it wandered around half lost for about the last decade, except during lockdown in 2020 when governments encouraged everyone, even those in apartments, to grow their own food to survive the pandemic. The government spent tens of millions of dollars scaring everyone into potting tomatoes on windowsills and balconies. Growing their own food gave people something to look forward to, I suppose, while they waited to die from COVID-19. It sounds like I'm kidding, but it's exactly what triggered permaculture educators to exploit fear in an effort to sell what amounted to millions of dollars of PDC courses during this, very short window. Like COVID, educators also made a killing and then moved on to exploit greener regenerative pastures. Most farmers don't realize yet that there is no appreciable movement in the movement. They know something is wrong. They just don't know if it's them or how to fix it. Some farmers feel like they're doing all the heavy lifting and that it's now up to the movement to pull its weight. And I agree. Permaculture is still hanging in, though, thanks in large part to regenerative agriculture that took it along for a ride and ramped up Permie visibility through association. When factory farmers discovered they could increase profit by dumping less chemicals on their crops, they eagerly jumped on board, but are now realizing that permaculture and regen ag aren't easily scalable, if at all, at least not yet. Industrial factory farming and feedlots, they cause substantial environmental damage and also produce poor quality and unhealthy food. Regenerative agriculture became popular when wealthy industrial farmers, they saw an opportunity to increase profit margins. In one sense, society can say, hey, good for them. At least we'll all benefit from having less chemicals in questionable crops like canola. It's a small gain, but food buyers will also initially embrace it because they're being told that the cost saving for factory farmers will be passed on to consumers, which we all know is a common and big old lie. In order to reduce consumer food costs, permaculture needs to find and onboard millions upon millions of new food buyers. The challenge is that in the entire world, there are only a handful of organizations doing it effectively, and many are in North America. One of the best is in Canada. The rest are still focused on profit and invest nothing to move the so-called movement. They target farmers who are desperate to try almost anything to save their bacon. The bait to attract paying permaculture student farmers is affordable, nutrient-dense food. That's the bait to get you to look, while the hook is the movement And wow, does it work on growers who naturally think, who doesn't want better and affordable food? Apparently no one when you look at the permaculture adoption curve. After almost 50 long years, permaculture still hasn't attracted enough customers to even support its own weight. Farmers stand alone in their fields wondering what they did wrong. And the truth is, farmers didn't do anything wrong, except trust that the movement would eventually take on a life of its own. You did nothing wrong. Unfortunately, very few permaculture educators taught farmers the business and political skills required to survive and thrive. Yes, political skills. You can ignore that elephant in the room at your peril. The harsh fact today is that alt-ag farmers will have to carry most of the weight of the movement on their own. Alt-ag farmers who already generate massive revenue recognize early that there is no appreciable movement. So they built their own communities and learned to compete directly with local grocers. And it's working. It's really working well. Today, my farmer is my friend is the secret to generating revenue and profit. Movements. And I'm talking about real movements, not the fake kind used to fool prospective customers into purchasing a PVC. Well, real movements have very specific standards and benchmarks that need to be met in order to call a movement a movement. If you purchased a PVC over the last several years and a substantial segment of your course did not include business and promotion training, you should insist on a refund. If the instructor says, "Oops, sorry," don't worry though, we can provide business training now. Well, you should run, because if you think their farming part is expensive and challenging, wait until you try promotion on your own. Reach out. Let me know what you'd like to achieve, and I'll introduce you to realistic visibility kitchen recipes that'll help you affordably and quickly generate revenue. I'm Maurice. Thanks for listening and watching. Be well.